Star Wars Bad Batch just dropped its new episode, episode 12, Escape from Ryloth on Disney Plus. I'm here to talk about it, the 12th episode of the show. So before we get my spoiler breakdown and review of the episode, please leave a like, guys. That is the best way to support this YouTube channel at the moment. Also, please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. I do these reviews every single Friday on the channel. I also do movie reviews, other TV show breakdowns and reviews, a box office breakdown show, and movie franchise rankings. If you like any one of those things, consider subscribing and ringing that bell for notifications. Also, please comment down below your spoiler thoughts on this episode and tell me, are you pumped for the last 4 episodes of this series? Let's get into the Bad Batch. So I knew that they were going to follow up with the Ryloth storyline from last week, and I didn't know how long this arc would last, especially because it's a 16-episode show, and we saw the last season of Clone Wars, there were many arcs that went 4 episodes, so I didn't know how long they would stretch this out, and luckily it is 2 episodes, but for me, by far, this is the best, one of my favorite episodes of the entire series so far. We have Hera, who is back again. She's from Rebels. She needs help because all of her family is under control of the Empire because they were assassinating the senator, which they obviously were not doing if you watched last week. So Hera calls on Omega. Now, we learned that Omega gave her the whatever signature or something to let the Bad Batch know if she needs any help in an emergency. So this episode does so much right, in my opinion. And the first thing I want to bring up, my first main point about the episode, is world building. My favorite aspect of the entire episode was that this clone general trooper who used to serve under Cham Syndulla in the Clone Wars, now obviously because of Order 66, now working for the Empire, he feels bad that he worked all those years for Cham, and then he just had to turn his back on him with an instant without any reason. And the fact that this clone feels off about the Empire, cares about the people, and is against the Empire is starting to build up reasoning for why they went to stormtroopers in the original trilogy. Because obviously in this show, they are really doing a great job of establishing the time period of the transition of power from the Republic to the Empire. It doesn't just go from Revenge of the Sith to Rogue One or Revenge of the Sith to New Hope with transition of power. It doesn't just all become the Empire that we know. There has to be a clean transition of power. And we're seeing how they're trying out these clones who did Order 66, but now you're seeing others of them rebel in this episode. It wasn't just our main clone trooper. He recruited other clone troopers at the end of this episode who also stood with him. So it seems like they could be obsolete, really, in the eyes of the Empire, as they still actually do care about their past wars. And it really brings to light an interesting storyline in the show. Now, of course, we have the Bad Batch crossing up with Crosshair this episode. They learn that as they're trying to rescue the Syndullas, they know that Crosshair is on watch. And the music for Crosshair really stood out to me this episode. It's a really powerful, villainous music. You can feel they were really building him up moment by moment to become the biggest villain of the season so far. And by the end of it, you can feel the intensity of what happens at the end of this episode. So Crosshair, and the idea of Crosshair knowing each of the Bad Batch's every move because he knows what it was like being a part of that group. And the idea of the villain being one step ahead or on the same page as our heroes makes Crosshair ever the more threatening in this show. And we learn when the Bad Batch actually get the Syndullas out of prison, they're about to run a trap because Crosshair is the only person who knows where the Bad Batch actually are. All these ships go, but Crosshair says, stay here. It's going to be a trap. They're coming right out with their only entrance. And then the clone obviously says, we got to stand up with these people. They get arrested, and the Bad Batch with Hera and the Syndullas escape from the prison. Crosshair was getting a lot of bad treatment from his general, whoever's running the Empire in this town. We've seen him in all really most of the episodes of the show thus far. He was very pissed off of Crosshair that Crosshair's unit could not find Hera. And then by the end of the episode, because the Bad Batch escaped, they're letting Crosshair take they're letting him running the reins off of Crosshair and then letting him chase the Bad Batch. We get some very intense music at the end of this episode, and you can feel the show building. I also thought it was Omega's strongest episode. She really feels like an important unit who's also not just learning lessons from Hunter and the rest of the Bad Batch, but also teaching them lessons. Hunter did not want to do this mission because it was too risky and all this types of stuff, and how one life isn't enough to save a mission on. And Omega said, I would have done the same thing for you guys, and you would have done the same thing for me. We have to save people. That's what soldiers do. And that theme was very much throughout the whole episode. And it was Omega actually giving lessons to each of the characters episode, which made her character the ever more interesting. So it's obviously setting up that Crosshair will be chasing the Bad Batch. It seems like that's how we're going to wrap up these last 4 episodes of the show. Again, they have not announced a season 2 yet of this show, but I'll tell you what, I loved this episode. A lot of good world building, a lot of good character development. Some people might say it's filler. For me, it was. It was really tying everything together, setting up the biggest story of the show, which is Crosshair going after the Bad Batch. That's my spoiler thoughts here on the Bad Batch. Please guys like the video, subscribe, ring the bell notifications. I'll be here the next 4 Fridays giving you my spoiler reviews of the Bad Batch. So please consider ringing that bell to know when those videos drop on the channel. You want to see my other reviews? I've done all 11 past weeks. You can hit that TV show review playlist down below. I've done all the MCU shows. I've done the Bad Batch. I've done a lot of other TV shows here this year. If you want to see my other videos that are recommended for you guys, I don't know what they are, but they are right above my head. Check those out as well. I'll see you guys in the next review.